You are the left, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left. Yep. But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that.
These are less than 1% of the population.
I understand that.
But you know what?
All right, everyone, fasten your seatbelts because this is going to be an exciting journey. I promise that you will want to stay for this one. When ESPN icon Stephen A. Smith, who is renowned for his feisty opinions on sports, appeared on The View for an open discussion, things swiftly became heated. If you've ever watched Stephen A. in action, you know that he doesn't hesitate to express his opinions, and The View was no different. To say the least, there was a showdown.
Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party.
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. Mm-hmm. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that.
These are less than 1% of the population.
I understand that.
But you know what?
Here's what happened. A lot of political talk opened the discussion. The View isn't particularly new, is it? Stephen A., however, presented an angle this time that was unquestionably different from the show's typical viewpoint. He quickly became at odds with co-host Sunny Hostin. Sunny has never held back when expressing her thoughts, and she thought that given his experience, Stephen would share them, particularly when it came to categorizing political parties. She classified some groups as extremist, but Stephen disagreed, and boy, did he express his position. Her notion that the Republican Party is a fringe organization was promptly refuted by him.
But I think that's where the mistake is made. Yeah, you're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you. Yeah. But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But that means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again, I agree with that. Be uninformed. Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. Yeah. And that's unfortunately.
The tone for an epic back and forth was established by that very moment. It was similar to witnessing a live political battle, and you could sense the tension building. Stephen made the point that it is detrimental to everyone to oversimplify a complex political environment. Furthermore, we should stop assuming things about people based solely on their history. Let's face it, folks, it's 2025. It's time to take a more expansive view.
You leaned and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another. Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want. Yeah. They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it, because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result.
Stephen A.'s openness about his personal political beliefs was what really made this discussion fascinating. He defined himself as both socially liberal and fiscally conservative. Furthermore, that combination isn't something we hear about very often in the media. On closer inspection, however, it makes sense. He will do anything to keep his money in his pocket. Who is not? But when it comes to social concerns, it also supports a live and let live attitude. In a time when both sides are becoming more radical, it's a very balanced position. Then, the actual fireworks started. When it came to transgender athletes and athletics, Stephen wasn't scared to get his hands dirty. He was blunt in his criticism of the contentious discussions around the topic, emphasizing that it is really about competitiveness and fairness. He clarified that the issue is serious and has a direct impact on how sports are conducted and how sportsmen perceive their competitive settings. While not entirely in agreement, Sunny dismissed his worries as absurd. Stephen, however, was prepared. By emphasizing that this isn't some minor, unimportant matter, he refused to back down. It's something that many parents, players, and fans are actually thinking about. Dismissing these concerns doesn't advance the conversation, and they deserve to be heard. It was then when he threw a curveball. He addressed the prevalent grievance of ignorant voters. Stephen challenged the conventional wisdom that people don't read enough or pay attention, rather than simply repeating it.
I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. Mm-hmm. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that.
That's less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but
he was right when he pointed out that many individuals don't have much time to keep up with the constant barrage of political noise because they are too busy battling to balance work, bills, and family commitments. The fascinating part came at this point. During his daily drive, Sunny suggested that people should pay attention to the news. Well, that seems like an excellent concept. Stephen, however, delivered a sobering reality check. It's not really that easy. You won't always get the whole picture by simply changing the station, because the media landscape is far from neutral. That is a point to think about. When attempting to obtain both sides of an issue, biases in the media can frequently skew the facts. The discussion then delved into Hispanic voting patterns, just when you thought it could get much more interesting. Why so many Latino men voted for Trump baffled Sunny, who assumed it had to do with illegal immigration. However, Stephen explained it. People are not all the same, and a variety of factors, not just one subject, influence how they vote. The oversimplification of entire ethnic groups and their voting patterns was criticized by him.
However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, et cetera. And if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians. To some, the economy was a priority. To some, believe it or not, it was the border. Yes. You had some folks within the Hispanic populace that were encouraging the borders to be closed.
I'm Puerto Rican, right? So the Hispanic community is not a monolith. I agree with you. Right. And a lot of, I think, people that are of Hispanic origin from, let's say, South America or Central America, they're willing to close the door behind them.
Additionally, Stephen noted that the Latino community, whether it be Mexican, Puerto Rican, or Cuban, has a variety of objectives and experiences. It serves as a potent reminder that generalizations about entire populations are not appropriate. Everybody has distinct viewpoints influenced by their individual experiences and backgrounds. I take it that the media enjoys simplifying. However, Stephen boldly pointed out that this type of narrative fails to capture the complexity of everyday reality. The media frequently undervalues the intelligence of voters. Meanwhile, he criticized the Democratic Party for their fringe tendencies, which he claimed were alienating centrists and traditional liberals. Because it depicts a political environment where voters feel marginalized by extremism on both sides, this was a significant event. Stephen made one thing very plain at the end of the day. Voters use their money to cast ballots. Mortgages, rent, and petrol prices, these are the actual concerns that people have. He's entirely correct, too. Many voters turn to the polls because economic realities are more compelling than ideological rhetoric. Here, however, it became even more profound. Political parties, he underlined, cannot only serve the extremes. Everyone's requirements must be taken care of. Taking into account the concerns of all voters, not just the most vocal ones, is more crucial than ever in the quickly changing political landscape of today. Right now, this is the actual obstacle that all parties must overcome. How to reach the silent majority while keeping the marginalized groups in mind. What are your thoughts then? When Stephen A. discusses the simplistic media narratives and the need for political parties to extend their strategy, do you agree with him? Or are you more on Sunny's side of the issue of educating and involving the public? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know where you stand on all this. And hey, if this conversation has you thinking, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next one. See you next time.